Shall we begin?
Yes, let's go, Noah.
You ready?
I'm ready.
A very special episode today because this time I invited Tiffany Fluent. Tiffany, you're one of our students currently in phase 2, the professional phase, and I asked you to come not so much to talk about what you are focusing on or your expertise, but just really to have a good conversation about something that I know that is very important for you, for me, but I know for you especially. And this episode is more of a discussion, an open discussion about this. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is confidentiality during coaching sessions. So welcome everybody to another episode of Moving Forward with the ICCI, the podcast of the International Coaching and Counseling Institute. I'm Noah Boom, your host on this podcast. And Tiffany, I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me this morning, Noah. And I have to say, I'm sitting here with a lot of respect and just thinking, wow, she's amazing. So thank you for having me.
And I'm looking at you and I'm thinking just the same, because you are such an inspiring person and you've made such a huge difference in the last year since you're our student. And it's just such a pleasure to have you. And you're glowing as usual.
Thank you.
I wish you would see her now. Tiffany is a person who glows, whatever. And we just talked about your beautiful makeup, but it's not your makeup. It's your smile and it's your being and everything.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming and really helping me to have this discussion about something that's so important, really fundamental to the work that we are doing. And instead of me talking and to myself, it's so much nicer to talk to somebody. And I'm so glad that you came, and we're going to share this time to talk about confidentiality. But first things first, I'm always asking one of my the guests, what did they think about coaching before they either became a coach or started studying, or what was the first impression that you remember when you heard coaching for the first time? What was it?
Well, I think, I played sports a lot when I was younger and as I got into my adult life. So for me, a coach always had something sporty to it. Although a coach was not just telling you how to play sports, but it was somebody that helped me and helped other students to bring out the best in ourselves when we were on the field or on the court. So when I thought about it in a greater sense, I thought, it's not just somebody that's telling you what to do, but it's also somebody that's showing you and helping you build that confidence to really be what you can be. So I think for me, that is really what a coach is. There's somebody that sees something in you and helps you to really bring it out.
That's a lovely thing to say. Yeah, because this is essentially what it is, right? Rather than telling you what to do, helping you to bring the best out of you.
Right, that you actually already have within you.
Yeah.
We sometimes just don't always see it or know it ourselves.
Yeah. I do hear that there's a bit of noise from outside. Of course, one of the neighbors decided to drill now. Do you hear it?
No.
Let's see. If it's going to bother us too much, then I'm going to go and close the back door. Although it's such a lovely summery day today, right? So we want the door open. So let's begin. So confidentiality, in a way, goes without saying for us coaches, but let's talk about it. What is it for you when a coach is keeping confidentiality during the coaching sessions?
Confidentiality for me as a coach or even being a client to somebody is the mutual agreement that what you discuss stays between the two of you. Of course, for a coach, it goes a step further because you keep it for yourself. It's creating a safe environment that the client's story is staying there. It's not going any further. And I think that's really, that's the most important part of the relationship. And because the client knows that you will keep that, I think it helps take the brakes off of the sharing. Because I think if you're having sessions with a coach and you're questioning, can I say this? Will it go further? That you're not really opening and really able to share everything. And I don't think if you're unable to share everything, that you're not getting the most out of the coaching.
Yeah. So, in other words, it's part of building trust.
Definitely part of building trust. And without that, I don't think that working with the coach will be successful if you're not able to trust it. To trust that relationship with your coach.
Yeah. I'm going to run and close the back door.
Sure.
Do you want to carry on chatting, or I can ask you a question and you will just answer it while I'm there, or we can just wait a minute.
Let's wait a moment for you.
I'm running. Closing the door. Coming back. Oh, I'm coming back. Let's. So we said that in order to build trust, there are many ways that we build trust with clients, but one of them is definitely confidentiality, to make sure that the story that the client is sharing is staying, like you're saying, within these four walls, as we say. Right?
Definitely.
And what is important for you that a coach will say to you, or how do you think the best is the coach will address that issue with the client when they come the first time, or even before they're coming?
Mm-hmm. I think it's good to communicate that, especially even in your first introduction appointment together. As the coach, what does confidentiality look like? What are the boundaries of that confidentiality? Is there a moment when you have to extend, or lengthen that boundary? I think to be clear from the beginning is very important, to discuss it, also to have it written, black and white.
Yeah.
That way, if there's ever any questions, it's there, it's clear. And also, it's a good idea, I think, to ask the client, what does confidentiality look like to them? What do they find important? Because maybe one client feels it a little bit stronger than somebody else. So that's good to, I think, have it clear from both ways what confidentiality looks like.
Let's talk about that just in a minute, because it's a very important point. But you mentioned in writing, and we know that a professional coach will give their clients what we call a client agreement. So it's kind of a mutual understanding in writing of what is the scope of the work, what are the responsibilities of the coach, what are the responsibilities of the client, how does it look like, all the details that need to be, to make things as clear as possible. And indeed, one of the things that we need to mention there is confidentiality. And like you're saying, when do we have to break confidentiality? There are, coaches they don't have the same protection sort of thing like medical professions, like doctors or psychologists. There are times in which that we have to break confidentiality. Like if we hear that somebody is about to harm themselves really badly or harm somebody else, by law, we need to share, and clients need to know that in advance.
Exactly.
Because this is the scope of our work. We're not allowed to keep that type of information to ourselves. And it needs to be known in advance, and best if it's also written. But as we know, there's another thing. We are never working alone.
That's right.
We are working with supervisors. Sometimes we're working with what we call intervision, so like a peer group supervising kind of thing. And we do share, as coaches, we do share some of the information. Do you want to explain what are we allowed to share? What are we not? Or do you prefer that I will explain it?
Well, I can also.
Come on. So when we work with let's say with our supervisor, how do we share things with a supervisor?
Well, my experience thus far is that we can share some information with the supervisor, but that we do not share any personal details that would make our clients recognizable.
Yeah.
So we keep it very general, and if we question it, don't share it. When in doubt, then don't share, or say, I need a few more minutes to think about how I can share this without going, over the boundaries of sharing confidential information. And if you need to take some more time, you can always come back to it at another moment.
Yeah.
And I think the same goes as well with intervision. If there's a moment that you think, well, you know what, I'm not really sure how to share this without giving too many details, you can always come back to it, I think.
Yeah.
So that you're not breaking that confidentiality.
Exactly.
And of course, what we share in intervisions is also confidential, but your confidentiality, the main priority is still your client.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's so important that we uphold that promise that
You
we have
said
to our
it
clients.
absolutely beautifully. Let's just give an example. So let's say I have a client that has a certain issue. I will not say what is not relevant, and I will not say any, and will not give any details that somebody may be able to recognize that client. I will say something like, if you go to the supervisor, usually let's open brackets. It's you go to a supervisor not to gossip about the client and not to really see how to their specific issue. It is more what the challenges that you have with a specific story. And you are sharing your difficulties or your challenges, so you get help in order to help the client best. So, for example, you will not say, I have a client who is working in this company, name of the company, as a name of the job description. Right. But you might say something like, I have a client who works in a big global corporate at a very high level, professional level, right. level, but anyway, and they have a challenge with a few of their employees, and I do not know how to help them to get over this or that, something that, again, as broad as possible. When we start giving names, when we start even describing something like, and I think I always give you that example during the lessons, that it was many years ago, I had a student who wrote a case study. We need to submit a few case studies when you're studying. And she wrote about a client who works with her in the same company. I knew what company she works with. It is a small world after all. Yeah, it's a huge global company, but I knew where she's working. Mm-hmm. And she did some coaching in the company as part of her studies. And she described that a certain disability that client has. Now, it's very rare to have such a disability. You can see the disability, and she described it. And although the issue was about that disability, it was part of the coaching, so she had to write about it. She could have just said a certain disability, not describing the disability, because I happened to work in that company as well. Actually, this is how she knew about me and my courses. Right. And I knew exactly who she's talking about because of that certain. So, it's how you study, it's how you learn. I brought it back to her. I said, be careful, let's change it. But you have to be super, super careful. If you ever share with the supervisor or in the intervision groups with your peers, no details whatsoever. If not mentioning where they come from unless it's important. But even then, you can say, they are coming from a country in South America rather than Argentina. Yeah. Right. So to make it as general as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would want the same from a coach as well. If I were seeing a coach, and I understand that sometimes you need to discuss something with the supervisor. Yeah. But they're also doing it for my benefit, also for their benefit. We're on the journey together, of course. And some things you still just are part of that confidentiality.
Yeah, and it's important that we communicate that with the client in the agreement, but also in the first session, definitely. We talk about it again, and we say we need to be as honest as possible. We are working with a supervisor. It's what we have to do. This is part of being a professional coach. Every so often you meet with your supervisor and you discuss issues that you have, how to be a better coach, and you might use their case to share, but you explain exactly how you do it, just like I explained now. Yeah, right. So they know that as much as possible, whatever was said in the room stays in the room, but you might use something general. I tend to say to my clients that if I will ever need to share something that's so specific that there is a chance that somebody will connect the dots, I will try and share it with them before I share with my supervisor.
Right, to give them a heads up so that they are aware of
So far, it never happened to me. I don't remember that it happened to me, but if you're saying it, it's clear to you, it's clear to them, and people really appreciate it. Right. They really appreciate it.
Have you ever had, you've got so much experience now, have you ever had a case where somebody did overshare? And how can somebody go back?
What do you mean overshare?
Or have shared too much confidential information?
In the session?
Maybe in the session or afterwards.
In the session, it's not a problem. Right. They share whatever they feel right to share. And yes, sometimes there are things that you're thinking, wow, that is a big thing you're sharing now. I tend to say it, just like I say it now. Or, it depends. Like, thank you so much for sharing this with me. This is I can understand how this is a very intimate thing, but I see that it's very important for you. I might say things like that. Right. But in a way, when people really share, that's a good sign. Again, it's the sign of trust. Right. And when a client is sharing with a coach, then the coach has more ability to help, rather than when things are hidden or not the whole picture is clear.
Right, because that would keep somebody from really getting the most out of the sessions. Exactly. If they didn't feel, or even as a coach, if you would have the feeling, as if somebody's not really sharing the whole story with you, because I don't think we can really help clients if we don't have the whole picture, at least if it's related, to the topics that you're covering.
And yet clients. You have to really respect if they don't want to share.
Yes, also.
Yeah.
Or perhaps tell them when you're ready to share.
Exactly.
I'm here for you, but I will not, push you into sharing something you're not ready to share.
Exactly. But we are drifting towards something that's not exactly about confidentiality.
Right.
But yeah, it's that knowing to receive the information and knowing how to keep it as private as possible, unless you have to share for the sake of the help of the client. Yeah, but we always work for the benefit of the client, and that's why it needs to be very clear in the beginning that you will probably share things. Sometimes you never do with a specific client. Yeah, everything works fine, but sometimes you will have to. But then it will be completely
general, and not specific. Right.
Exactly. And I think that, and this is it's a big, really huge question, because we as coaches, we want to share what we do. We want to share our work. We want for people to know what we're doing, but also to share on social media, because that's how we get clients, right? When they see that we help that client, the other client.
And the clients are happy with us as coaches.
Exactly. So what do you think about that? Because that's always a big issue. Do we share? What do we share? How much do we share? What do you think?
I think that depends with every client, what are you using the information, what information? And absolutely before you would share anything that you really talk about it with clients. So perhaps you would like a referral. If somebody is referring you or would like to refer you, that you really agree with that individual client. Would you like to give me a quote?
Yeah.
That I could use for my website, for example?
Yes.
All right. Would you like me to write anonymous? Would you like me to use your first and last letter of your initial? Would you like to use first name or not? That, I think, is solely up to the client themselves. It's good to discuss it and also to have it in writing. And that you also agree, all right, how long can I have this up? Or if you've changed your mind, all you need to do is just let me know, take it down, and I will do that as soon as possible. Because maybe somebody changes their mind, maybe they go through a change in life, and they think, well, you know what, actually, I don't want to have my name or I don't want to have my quote on this coach's website anymore. No problem, just let me know that you agree, that you also have that in writing as well. That way you still have that trust, even when the sessions with the coach have come to an end.
Yeah.
That you
very
still
important.
know that confidentiality and that trust is still there.
Yeah, very, very, very important. Yeah, to discuss and ask, like you're saying, all those kind of levels of how much they are allowing you to use their story, their names. And I always say that when you are sharing client stories, it's a lovely thing, and whoever knows to do it in a way that doesn't give in too much. If they know how to do it, like to tell the story, to be good storytellers, that's absolutely lovely. I'm jealous of people who can do that. I hardly do that because I never feel like I can. But I do know of other coaches. They do a great job creating almost like a fictional person. So they are basing their stories on true stories, but they might mix a few stories together, or they might make up something that's not exactly about their client.
So that nobody could recognize, or there would not any bells would go off with your audience.
Because the idea is to share the change, or to share what is happening, and not specifically about that specific person. And yet I personally find it difficult. So I still find it a bit challenging, but I mean, I really applaud people who can do that, and there are some people who do it fantastically.
Yeah, I do as well. Maybe that's definitely something that you could practice.
Or learn.
Yeah, practice, learn a combination of as well before you share, to check as well with clients.
Yeah.
Say, hey, this
Although
is...
if you made it up or combined a few. And I do remember a story when I studied, so that tells you how long ago, but that somebody shared a story of a client, and then another client thought it's about her and actually complained to the B-ICCI, the British Association for Counseling and Psychotherapy. That's my association, but she got a complaint. And she found it very hard to explain and to say that it was not even that client that she was referring to. She gave an example, I don't know, I think it was before the time of social media, but maybe in a conference, I can't remember exactly, but it was something that she shared. And she had to try and prove that it's not even about client B, it's about client A, that again was so anonymously, but then somebody else thought that it's about her. So that's what was one of the stories that we were told when we were studied. So you have to be careful. You have to be very, very careful. And again, I really am jealous of people who can do it and can do it well. I mean, I am even being careful with my students, and for goodness sake, my students, when I tell their stories, they usually have their own companies and they're coaching and they have their own website, and yet I'm being very careful to say who studied with us, etc. Unless they are happy for me to do it. And yet I will not tell their story of growth or something. It still feels very...
I don't know. Perhaps that's something that you could talk about, because as one of your students, I find it inspiring to hear about others that have made, even if it's a small transformation, every step forward is a step forward. So that can be, inspiring, or perhaps you can check with someone and say, listen, I would like to share this general story without giving too much away. Are you okay with it? And if you're sharing something, to say, hey, this is not just one specific story. It's other stories that are put together. I'm not sharing any information about specific clients, but knowing you, perhaps you can be inspired by what I'm sharing.
Yeah, you're right. I should do that more. So thank you for that little push. Yeah. Like, for example, I have Helen Monument, who used to be our student. And when she arrived to study with us, she was in her 60s. And I recorded an episode with her a few weeks ago. And it's just, whenever I have a potential student who is older and they said to me, oh, might be too old, I'm immediately referring them to Helen. And now that we recorded a podcast together, I can refer there. So the story is there. But until then, I was a bit like, I always kept it more private. I gave her website, I gave her name. I know that she talked to quite a few people. But you're right. I just needed her permission to ask, is it okay, to share your story? Right. And now I know it's okay, because if it's out there on the podcast, anything she said there, I can say again. But you're right. You are absolutely right. And you've got a good point that it is inspiring to see that what other people have done, the difficulties they had, the challenges they had, and yet where are they now? Even if they're just, halfway through or walking the way, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
And as well, if there are instances where you would like to use a quote from a client, and the client, says, well, no, actually, I don't want to give I don't want to give a quote. I don't want anybody to know that we do coaching. That's also okay. And that we also communicate with them and say, if you don't want to, I also really respect that.
Yeah.
All right, for yourself, then you think, okay, that's one client or something that I might not be able to use, but that's okay, because the best interests of that client, then you just have to put your marketing, as a coach, you think, all right, I can't use that, but that's okay. There will be other clients that are okay with you to share something or do want to contribute, so that you can continue to be a coach for others.
Yeah, which brings me back to what we said earlier, and I said, let's come back to it. You mentioned something I see it as a very professional thing, to discuss it with the client. What does confidentiality mean to you?
What does it really mean for me? Confidentiality, or in the greater sense of?
Like what I understood from what you said is that in the discussion with the client, especially if it's a new client, simply discuss with them. Ask them, how does confidentiality look to you?
Right.
What does it?
Because for example, if you have 5 clients, I think maybe all 5 have a different idea of what confidentiality looks like, sounds like, what does it entail. For us as a coach, regardless of who your clients are, that confidentiality will all be the same. It's not like for this client, I will, confidentiality looks like this. And for another client, no, it's all the same, where, everybody is the same. So it's good to have that out in the open from the beginning. And if you doubt it, it's something that you can, talk about again with your clients.
You know what you remind me? That it also goes the other way. I had a student. I also had a few students who do that, which is completely different. But I had a client that she was so out there, like talking about absolutely everything that is happening in her life on social media, of course. Right. And every so often I would see her like a story. I've been with my coach Noah today, and she would tag me, of course, and we discussed this and we discussed that. And sometimes I felt like, wait a minute, like that was so intimate in a way that the two people in a coaching setting are talking.
Right.
You are now sharing things that I said that I'm not sure I was happy for her to share. I'm not, I'm proud with most of the things I do in the coaching, but still, because we create such like
a trusting
environment.
Right.
To begin with, it was hard for me to swallow that she goes and she's like, "Oh, we discussed this, we discussed that," and Noah said that, and she had this idea, and she and I'm like,
Yeah, but how did you feel? And did you talk about it with that,
I did.
client in another session?
I did. Because on things like that, you have to talk. So I said, "Wow, I was surprised to hear." And then she said, "Oh, is it okay?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." Because at the end of the day, and I said to her, if I'll ever feel that there's something that we discussed, I said, whatever, that I don't want you to say, then I will tell you. But it actually never happens. I mean, what's the worst? She will share an exercise that we did together, or a coaching tool that we used. Come on, those coaching tools are, even some of them are makeup, as you know me. Something similar is there. There's never anything like secret.
Right. And if the client is in the lead in that sense, is okay with sharing with others.
Yeah.
Others can see that as inspiring as well. Say,
absolutely.
I don't feel like I need to hide if I'm seeing a coach. So maybe it brings other people out to think, oh, you know what?
Absolutely.
She's seeing a coach. Wow.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you the result of it.
Right.
She was from a very specific country that, not a lot of people, it's not like she was, I don't know, from France or from here, the Netherlands. She was from a very specific country, and after that I had other people from that country coming to coaching, and it was clear that they are following her. She's a big hoo-ha thing on social media, so yeah, it's just it can also
well, it says
help.
something about you as well, that she was enthusiastic about coaching with you.
Yeah, and I don't think she ever said go to Noah. She was just sharing
Look,
what we did together.
Then she was happy.
Yeah.
I had a client that was not a direct friend or family member. And they said, oh, well, if you want to tell your husband that I'm the client, go ahead. It's okay. And I said, well, I'm not telling my husband who my clients are. My husband completely respects that. Is not even asking. I said, however, if you want to share with other people that you're, following coaching sessions with me, that's up to you. But I will never just go share that on my own. We've agreed to this confidentiality. I'm going to uphold that. I will not share anything.
So even if you got permission, you said, no, these are not how I work. I don't share with my husband.
I didn't feel that was not going to add anything.
Yeah.
I've made this promise as a coach and to this client. What we discuss is completely up to us. If you want to tell somebody that you're coaching with me, that's okay. But I'm going to uphold the
Remember, we had
promise.
once a discussion about confidentiality and privacy, and we talked about the cameras that people have now on their bells, like the ringing bells.
Right.
And finally, I meant to tell you this morning, pay attention, there is a bell.
I saw the cameras, but I came to ring.
Well, you know exactly why we had to put cameras on. It's something that I don't really believe in, but we had to. But I now tell new clients, pay attention. And I said to them, if you want me to switch off the camera or put a sticker on it, and it's an idea that you gave me during one of the lessons, you said to me, to everyone in the class, we discussed it, and it was your input. You said, I really strongly believe that clients need to know in advance, because it records you, especially if you approach the door, but also if you ring the bell. And then if your husband has the same app, he can see, right? So you said not only we're going to say to the clients, but give them the choice to switch off or put a sticker on just before they come. And I was really, really impressed by you when you said that.
Well, I think, that's with technology, with change throughout the years, technology also comes, it's got its benefits. I think everything's got pros and cons to it. Most of us are used to being on camera somewhere. If we go to the doctor, there's also outside the doctor's offices to see. I also see that, okay, that's also for my safety. But indeed, because we are not a big company. We're small. It's one-on-one sessions. That it's good. I don't think it can hurt to mention that to a client. And maybe for somebody in some circumstances, they would say, okay, well, I really don't want anybody to know that I'm coming to see a coach, that we can respect that. And if we mention that in advance, probably the majority will say, well, actually, I don't really mind because they just see my face, and for the rest, you're not. Yeah. Although in some countries, especially outside the Netherlands, I know in some regions, it's quite common for people to have cameras on the inside of their home, in the living room. Yeah.
What? I've never seen that.
I don't have that, but for some. But that is then if you're coaching in your home or in an office with cameras on the inside, then I think that's a different level. Then you really need to look into that if it's okay and talk about it with your clients.
Wow. Whoa.
So
I never heard of that. I never heard of that. But it's super important. It's not allowed. You're not allowed to record anything again unless you have permission in writing from the client that you're now recording parts of a session, which again, sometimes it's fine. I don't ask that from my students, but there is actually a coaching association that in order to become members, you need to submit a session, like a recorded session with the client. Part of why I do not belong to that association is that part of it. Yeah, right. There's the reasons. Because I think this is really breaking confidentiality, but it's also the trust of, if I want to be a member, can you not just trust me with all the other documents that I'm sending you and the examples and case studies and everything, like the whole portfolio that we both know it's quite excessive.
Yes.
You really need to hear my voice and my client's voice. A voice is a very personal thing, and especially nowadays that you can, with technology, like you're saying,
it changes, and that's really important. That we stay on top of it. Sometimes things are going so quickly; it's almost impossible to really be able to stay on top of everything unless we have to in the field of technology.
Yeah, but we really, really have to.
We do. It's really important.
What you're saying reminds me of a question that again we discussed previously. What do you do with clients that you know that you might meet them socially or in the neighborhood, or especially the expat community in the Netherlands? It's a relatively
small world.
Yeah. Yes. Both you and I, we live near Delft. There is a beautiful group called Delft Mamas. We belong to that on social media. We see each other there, whether you want or not. So you can choose to block somebody, of course, but most of us don't. It's part of our social support, and that's what we do. So what do you think about that? About actually meeting your or having the possibility of meeting your clients, even in a supermarket?
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, well, as we talked about before, I think it's perhaps good to mention in even one of the first sessions, acknowledge it and let the client take the lead in that. Ask them, if we are, coming across each other at this networking event or this one, would you like me to acknowledge you? Or if you don't want to acknowledge me, I'm perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I won't feel bad. How would you, and if you want to acknowledge each other, how far would you like to go with that? Would you like, are you going to be introducing me as, hey, this is Tiffany, I met her, she was my coach? I will leave that completely up to the clients, because I withhold, really want to continue upholding that confidentiality agreement that was put into place before we started the coaching sessions. And I think that's really important. And if a lot of people might say, or somebody might say, oh, well, I've actually already told everybody I've had you as a coach.
Yeah.
That's also really good. And that you could say, okay, that's great that you acknowledge me as your coach. And I think I would still say, okay, just remember though, and I want you to know, I will not share anything that we talked about in our sessions.
Yeah.
If you want to do that with people, that's all right. But I will not do that. I will not talk with other clients, even if it was a referral, I will not share anything, just to remind them that you can still give them that feeling, that trust is still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think people can probably only respect you, for that as a coach.
Absolutely. And again, you're mentioning the talking in advance. Yeah, making things clear. And there will be clients that will decide. There will be clients. It's quite rare, but it happens that they come to you, but nobody knows about it. So even their partner doesn't know about it. And if you live in the same city, or sometimes in the same neighborhood, you go to the same events. Let's say you meet them with their partner in the supermarket. To even say it's perfectly fine if you ignore me, that I will not wave to you. You wave to me before I wave to you.
Right.
You say hello to me before I say hello to you. I will completely ignore the fact that I know you in advance. And that's, most people really, they don't get to that extreme, but it can happen. So it's important to mention it, that you're not getting offended. Yeah? Right. But then even in, let's say, social events, again, it's a small world, small community. You might meet at a party or something like that. Same rule. You greet me.
And then I'll greet
you. Yeah.
Right.
Before, as a coach, you'll greet them. And certainly not talking about where you know each other from or what is discussed in the session, unless it comes from the client. And even then, I always remind my clients, what I say to you always in the first few sessions of the training. Although we decide that whatever is discussed here, whatever is said here, stays here, what is said in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right.
Was it Friends? I don't remember, but
I don't know. But that's quite a thing. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah. But there is always this moment that you might feel that your story is too much out there, and once things were said, you usually cannot take them back.
No, especially these days with social media. Once something is out there, it can be impossible, or it's very difficult to get it back.
Even you can erase a comment or erase a post. Still, people saw it, people heard it. So also think of what you're happy to share out there. Outside the coaching sessions with people, because a word that you said, you can really not take back.
I think it is also good if you talk about that with clients at the beginning, also towards the end when you're rounding things off.
Yes.
And also let them know not only what you're sharing, but with whom you're sharing it. Because maybe there are people within a client's environment that are not supportive of a coaching process, that they can also know, think about who you share it with, not just what, but with whom.
Yeah. Oh, you went to a coach,
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. And, and if somebody has a different idea about it, you're doing this for you.
Yeah.
That might be a different podcast, but not just what you're sharing, but with whom you're sharing. That's also...
You remind me that just this week I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't just record one,
but you also
listen to it. And there was one of the guys said to the other, I went to a coaching session. Actually, I went to 2 coaching sessions, and I thought it's not helping me. And then the other guy said to him, well, maybe you shouldn't say the name of the coach then. Oh. And then he said, no, I'm going to say, because basically his story was that he went to only 2 sessions. He thought it's not really helping him, but over a few weeks after, he all of a sudden, something happened that he discussed with the coach, the possibility that will happen, and he could really deal with that situation. And then the penny drops of how much that coach helped him in just 2 sessions. And they discussed it. The discussion was about processes, that not everything we are so used to here, now, results. And sometimes things need to really sink and take their toll and their time. And that was the discussion. But again, like, be careful how you mention things, because he was so careful that other guy said, don't say his name. Say, no, I'm going to say his name because he's done a brilliant job with me. Yeah. So, mentioning, especially socially, you do need to be careful, and it's important that your client knows that too.
And I think that is part of that honest and open relationship and trusting with the coach. Yeah, and with the client and with your clients. Yeah, and with your supervisor. If you're also sharing something, and as a coach, you have your clients, but you also have supervisors and you have peers. Yeah, I think that confidentiality that is also very important. That you're on the same level. Yeah, definitely. Of confidentiality when you're sharing there. So not just with that coach and clients.
Which brings me to a question that you asked me about confidentiality when you coach in companies and organizations.
Right. My question, in that sense, because I know that you have experience working for companies, is that companies, and I think that's become more and more, these past few years, is that companies will get coaches for their employees, which is really great. And that made me think of, all right, does that then give you 2 layers of confidentiality? Because you have one client is the company that is bringing you in, paying the bill for the development of their employee. But the employee is also your client. So you also have a confidentiality level with that direct client. How have you gone about that? Or what would you suggest for maybe a coach that is going to be doing that for the first time, that doesn't have any experience?
That's an excellent question. Because I'm really happy to say that more and more companies are hiring coaches. Either their own coaches, so they train them, like I do in a big company now that I train 15 guys to become coaches in their company. But a lot of companies hire an outside company, like they hired me, for example, to coach their employees. And like you're saying, you then have 2 levels. You have the people who hired you, usually HR or a head of department or something like that. And the direct employee is indeed your client. He or she are the ones you're coaching.
Right, that will be sharing personal information.
Exactly. So openness and putting things on the table right in the beginning is extremely important. And it needs to be very, very clear to all sides what is expected from them. So I must say that from what I see, also employers understand that the complete confidentiality, so the employees can talk about anything, is extremely beneficial. And it's more and more that. So they don't expect the employees to talk about specific things that are only related to work, for example, because as we know, a lot of times it's issues that the person has generally or at home that can really affect their work, and they don't ask coaches, only talk about work issues. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's a big growth from, let's say, 10 years ago, when sometimes I was asked, you only work on their capacity of work or the results that they are bringing. That has really changed. It's really not like that anymore, and it's wonderful.
That's really good, because it can all have an impact that's not just, something that's on its own, but as people. Yeah.
And it's lovely. Not so long ago, I had a client that was sent to me to here. So the company sent that client to me here, and they said to that client, we see that you have a lot on your mind. It was a big kind of family situation, please go to that coach. I mean, she had to check that we have connection, yeah?
Right.
But we will pay for it. You don't need to tell us. But discuss your personal things. It's that common now, yeah? Which it's a huge shift from a few years ago.
And it's so positive.
Yes.
I think it's really a positive shift.
But back to what you're asking, like openness right from the beginning. Again, let's say HR are hiring you. So an honest conversation of what do you expect from me as a coach, and how do I see coaching as the most beneficial thing. And again, if they bring you for a specific thing, because, I don't know, of bad work-life balance in the company, I don't know, then everybody needs to know that this is something HR wants you to coach people about. Or time management. So common nowadays, yeah? Or I coach a lot about communication, open communication between all parties in the company. The ability to be there for each other. Openness. So I will say to the employees, this is what we are expected to talk about. This is what I am here for. So this is one level. However, it could really be that the company just want you to support their employees about absolutely everything and anything. And then the agreement is different.
Right.
Then the agreement is whatever is said, it is really confidential.
Right. And as long as you know that in advance, it makes it easier probably to go about. Then you're not doubting.
Everybody.
Yeah, for everybody.
So nobody will ask me, oh, what did you talk to this employee about? However, I always, again, it's an open discussion with the people who hire you. Because, for example, it could be that you will coach 10 people in this company. And you will see that there's a trait. There is something there that you see as a coach. You hear the same story again.
Or a certain
again.
pattern, a reoccurring pattern that's
Yeah.
not just with one of the employees, but with a number of them.
Exactly. So you start to have, like, you know,
A little flag or a little light bulb is kind of flickering.
Exactly. And then part of your job is to get everyone feeling better, right? Everyone feeling more comfortable, making a positive change. So I tend to say it both to the people who hire me and the employees. Would you like me to flag it if I see something like that? And the answer is mostly yes. And again, I will have to say to the specific employee that I'm working with, to every single one of them, I will not share personal things unless you want me to, or you ask me for permission. But I will, to the request of HR, let's say, if I do see something that is happening here again and again and again, or it's something that can really be improved, I will most likely share it for the benefit of everyone. I will not say names. I will not say who told me. And again, you have to have enough employees that are coming to you for it to be confidential enough. Yeah, if you're coaching 3 people and you're saying, oh, this is they can guess sometimes. So it needs you need to think about it. Yeah. You need to think about it.
Take the time to really think, and I think that goes back to when we started talking as well with confidentiality. What do you share? How much do you share? Keep it general. Don't give specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So openness, that's always best. In rare cases, but it can happen, and you just need to pulse it, to see. You might share with those employees that you have seen something that they have told you, but other people spoke about that or something similar too, and you are going to share that, again, in a confidential way with the company, just so you are aware. And then you can feel the water. But that is quite rare. But not
again,
not impossible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that answer
Yeah,
your
it does.
question?
Especially as a somebody that's still starting out, also thinking, hey, maybe I would like, to work for a company. And there will always be something that you come across that you perhaps hadn't yet experienced. That's why it's good to know that you have a supervisor and you have peers that you can perhaps talk about these instances with.
Yes.
Without sharing too much specific information.
Yeah. And again, just to wrap this part up, a lot of times you are being hired for something specific to get people to do that better. So for me, it's better communication within the company, and you want to see results. So one of the things and you want to show results. So one of the things that we are doing is a very open discussion a lot of times before we all start. So I don't know, 15, 20 employees. We get them together and say, I'm here to help you with that. This is what I'm going to do. It's going to be done. Sometimes it's a workshop and then private talks, or, depends how you set it up with the company. But again, people know what you came for and know that you're going to report and measure it from time to time with everyone. Right. So it's not a secret.
And do you also share within that group, what you are talking about within that group? And if their colleague who's sitting next to them is also sharing something, the importance of keeping the confidentiality within the group?
Then it's within the group.
Right.
It's exactly like when we are studying. It's exactly like in any workshop that I do workshops that people share.
Right.
I think most of my workshops, people do share. And I always say the same thing. You keep, what is being discussed here, but you really need to be careful who you share with outside of this room and how to do it.
Don't take this discussion and what your colleague is now sharing with you back to the work floor with other team members that were not involved in this workshop.
And
today,
give names and you know what? Sometimes not at all. Because again, somebody will connect the dots and will think, oh, it must be that person shared it, etc. So we have to really keep each other here. It's hard, and people who are not geared into it, like they're not really doing it on a daily basis, or that's not so important for them, the tongue might
slip a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But you have to discuss it and you have to talk about it. Yeah. And sometimes I give workshops like in conferences and etc. And people don't know each other, and yet I'm asking them to, turn to your partner and talk. And that rule has to be said. Although it kind of goes without saying, you still need to say.
Yeah, but and with something like this, everybody might have a different idea and what confidentiality is and what do you keep confidential. So I don't think you can say it too much. I think if you say it, it's better to say, hey, what we're discussing today.
Better to
be
safe than sorry.
Exactly. Because
Definitely.
then you create that safe environment for everybody.
Yeah.
That's there and that's present.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to ask me before we wrap up? God, I love talking to you. You're such a...
Thanks. Well, I made sure I tried to be as prepared. As possible.
No, I know you're prepared, and you have. I see a few written questions, but still.
Along the lines of confidentiality, have you ever had a moment that you can look back on where you perhaps kept something confidential that you wished you hadn't kept confidential?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, again, for me, it's mostly my students that I don't share their difficulties, etc., because I don't think it's fair. Unless they shared it first. And even then, I'm very careful. So, for example, and I am allowed to share that story. So I do have a long time ago, student that she came to us. She first inquired about us, and then she decided to go to another course. And within the first day, they made her cry. Because the trainer was, come on, say it, tell it. And one of the things that actually that really bothered her there was confidentiality. She was made to talk about something.
It's so important.
And she called me like crying, and she said, I started that course. One day was enough for me. Can I come back to your course? I'm going to get all my money back. So it's a story that for many years I didn't tell because she didn't tell it.
Right.
But now, quite a few years later, you actually know her. She's telling it. She was saying it. She was writing a post about it one time and tagged us. So I can talk about it. But I am still careful. You see, I'm careful of saying her name, for example.
Right. And as well as a coach, I completely respect that. And I think that's also what makes us, as your students, feel so comfortable with you, because we just know how important that confidentiality is as your students, as a coach, and we have, the utmost respect for that as well. So that's what's helped me to be able to feel like I can share certain things with you as a teacher. I think, okay, well, I know this will stay between Noah, unless I were to say, hey, maybe actually what I've shared with you could help other students or could help during an intervention. But then it's, of course, something that I would check with you and not just share and say, oh, well, this is what I talked about with Noah.
So maybe it's time for our 2+1, the two surprising
what
questions.
I've got some questions.
You got a question for me?
Down, yeah.
Okay. But I will ask you, maybe that will surprise you, but it's important for me to ask your opinion about it. As you know, whenever you're sending me documents, most of the documents you're sending me are protected by a password. That was the window, don't worry about it. And I do have that, for each course I have, we have a code. Yeah, we have a passcode, right? That everybody knows. But now I'm starting to think we had so many students and so many intakes and courses, and they're all using the same code. So I want your open opinion about it. It's funny we're talking about it on air, but I don't care. Should I maybe create a separate password for each group so it's even more specific? Because it's a headache for me. Because I will need to remember.
Yes, I was just thinking, oh no, I can remember all the phone numbers from when I grew up in a small village, of the dentist, of the grocery store. But I can't remember the password I created yesterday. So I would say for me, it's okay. I don't need a separate password. But I'm also not the only student. So maybe take a poll. For me, it's not necessary. It's just one more password. And I have to think, where do I write this? Yeah. And how do I not forget where I wrote it? Yeah.
Well, I'll think about it for the next one. Because really, we're getting so many people. I mean, the chances that somebody will open a document that somebody else sent, but
and every password is different as well. Some need 12 characters, some need something different, and then you're
well,
spending
I'll
so
think
much
about
time on that you're
maybe something simple, but we will see. I'll discuss it with you off air, not to give in what the passwords can be. And now I have a completely different surprising
Go ahead.
Question.
I will try to give you
for you
best answer as possible.
When one of the things that you really impressed me about a year ago, when we first started, I started teaching you, is how much some of the things that you shared, that you wanted to talk about, were so important for you to keep. I don't know, not secret, because I think they are quite known things. But you spoke about those personal things, very personal. Is it okay that I talk about it? Because I see. Are you sure?
I'm not usually really good with answering questions on the spot.
Yeah.
So what could this be? I'm nervous a little bit, but go ahead. I can do it.
But you know what it is, right? It's part of your personal life. And I want to ask, when, if at all, when did you feel that you can share that with me?
That's a really good question. I would have to say, well, we had, of course, a brief conversation before we started the course. And when I came into the course, the first day in class, I was thinking to myself, oh, what? We've got to share our personal stories. And I thought, no, I didn't come here for that. I came here to learn how to help others. So I was, you've got a saying in Dutch, if you directly translate it, kind of like looking at the cat in the tree, waiting for it to come down. And I thought, well, I'm not going to share. Even after having one peer group session, I was really kind of just waiting a little bit, feeling the waters. Can I share? And I had a talk with my husband, and he kind of made a joke and he laughed a little bit and said, well, we all know how much you enjoy talking about your own emotions and sharing. So he kind of made a joke, and I thought, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm always here for others to share, but I'm not one to share. And then I really thought about it and thought, okay, well, in order for me to get the most out of this coaching course, I see it actually as much more than a course, and to really be a journey. I'm learning a lot of new things. And to be the best coach as possible for others, I have to be willing to share and open up. If I don't do that, if I'm learning and going down this journey with brakes on, basically, compared to riding a bike or to driving a car, you can't drive and go forward if you have on the brakes. Then you're going to just stay still. The same. If you want to bike somewhere, you have to let go of the brakes, because otherwise you're not going to move. You're not going to go forward. And I thought for myself, all right, I'm going to give it the gas. I'm going to go. But then at my own pace.
Yeah.
And I think for me that I thought, all right, you know what? If I'm going to go, if I'm going to move forward, I have to be willing to share. Just like if I'm, having clients, they have to take off the brakes. If clients want to move forward, they have to take off the brakes, because otherwise I can't help them. And in turn, I also can't help myself to be a coach if I'm not willing to take off the brakes and say, okay, I'm going to share, here we go. And it made it a lot easier the next time. And I think also being open during the peer sessions in class, and I think we all said, it's not easy to share, but because we know within that environment, we're all safe. It's okay to share each other's stories. I think that was the moment, that it wasn't just one moment, but it was an environment of encouragement to say, oh, it's okay. You're crying, you're laughing. It's all okay. We're all here. That for me was the moment I thought, okay, here we go. And then I created that password in that document. Yeah. And then I thought after, what was now that password?
Yeah.
So,
well, it was for me. It was very moving that you felt comfortable to share that part of you with me. Again, under a special password and in writing. And
exactly. But also, sharing things, and that is also one of the things that we've learned as well. If you're sharing something really personal, that it might also have an impact on somebody else, it's also good to let them know, that's outside of the confidentiality part of it, to let them know, hey, this could be a trigger for you, what you're going to find in this document or what I'm about to tell you. Is it a good moment for me to share this with you?
Yeah.
That you can also check. Maybe someone's had an emotional day or has had an emotional week.
No, I remember you writing it.
Something sharing so personal, they might not be ready for that. So I think, that's
but what you're saying is that you decided to test the water bit by bit. When you were comfortable, you shared with me and with the peers. But it's partly you saw it as part of your growth. If I'm expecting my clients to open up with their personal stories and their life experience and many other very private things, how can I expect that from them if I'm not going to try and do it myself?
Exactly.
And I think, you had a very, very, until today, but you're a very, very good and reliable and, great group, great intake
We have an amazing group of women that are following, this journey. We're following the course, but it's more than a course. It's a journey, and we're on it together. And it's one of the most inspiring groups of women. Everybody is so different, but
different ages, different places you came from. It's crazy.
But I walk in and I immediately feel like, oh yes,
and I think it's partly because you created that trust very, very quickly.
Yes, we did.
There's never criticism. There's nothing.
No judging.
Nothing.
No judging.
And in most of the groups are like that. But sometimes you do get somebody who's a bit more like people are a bit less comfortable, and it takes just more time. But your group, so lucky to have you.
And the group will know who they are when they hear this.
They know. Your question to me.
Okay, well, I have a few, but I'll have to narrow it
You will have to narrow it down to one. That's the game.
Okay. What is one thing in life you really want to do but haven't done it yet?
One, Tiffany.
That was one of the
Let's torture now.
I prepared.
Travel more. Definitely. I don't know why. I was never very adventurous, but I was adventurous. From the way I grew up, etc., going on hikes, trips, stuff like that was really part of it.
Living abroad as well.
Living abroad. But I live in a very flat country.
That's true.
And I would love to do more treks and taking more risks and doing that. Like going abroad to, I don't know even where to, but challenging myself more physically and more trips to mountains. You talked to me about mountains before, when we arrived.
Right.
More to see more of the world. That I'll tell you what I'm missing, and I would love to go back to it. That feeling of going up a mountain, like breathless, and getting to the top, and sitting and going, wow, look at that world we live in. Like, wow, that breathless moment that you have when you're like, I've not done it for so long that I forgot. Like when your gut is empty because you're so in awe of that, what you're seeing, and you climbed all that. And that's the one thing that I used to do, haven't done for ages, and I would love to do that again. I need a good partner.
That is willing to take that on. Okay. Well, that was one. I had another one, but I'm only supposed to ask one.
Let's see if it's a quick answer.
Okay. If there was one other career path that you could still follow in life, what would it be?
Oh my God.
You've taught me to ask good questions.
Yes, definitely good question. Actually, the answer is teaching. But I do that. I just do it. I created that path for myself that I'm still back to teaching. Just teaching this rather than another subject, in a high school. But I love working with teenagers. I absolutely love non-formal education. So also with teenagers, I always loved that part. Although I was in very formal education, taught for 70 years in classes. But teaching. But again, I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. I'm creating my own curriculum, my own materials and stuff. But teaching maybe something that's very clear, if right or wrong, like language. I taught a language, so either you do it right or you do it wrong. Or math or something. That kind of feeling that there is, you can measure it against something. But yet again, no, because what I do now, it's the fact that you you can't, you know what's wrong, but there's so many levels, like endless levels to measure success in this and to measure. So anyway, but teaching,
okay. Well, you are a great teacher from my point of view. You're a great
I
teacher,
love
and
teaching.
I think you're a successful.
Love teaching. Back to the career of teaching. I would go back. Really, I will. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
You've got a lot of patience, and you're also very clear at the same time. And I think you're empathetic as well.
And you know why? Because I was a bad student.
Really?
Yeah.
I would never guess that.
I was, bad. I never fulfilled my potential. Let's put it that way. I was everywhere. I was never diagnosed, but I think that nowadays they would diagnose me for ADD, ADHD, or like.
Maybe you just needed to go to a teacher that could understand.
No, when I had good teachers, I was great. When I had teachers who were very organized, specific. You know that idea that we're going way over the time now, but
sorry.
You know how I tell you have 10 dividers, you put this in number 1, you put this in number 2, like here you put number 1, general information, number 2, forms, number 3, working with clients, number 4, this, number 5. You know who I took it from? I was 16 and I had a teacher for literature, and that's what she did. She said 5 dividers, poems, number 1. Novels, number 2. And I remember that made such a lot of sense. Rather than, here's your folder, put everything in there. And she was so particular about it. Like, I'm particular with you. You are sending me this way. You are sending me this way. And I see that it is helping you. It's that
very organized.
Very organized.
Yeah.
And she really inspired me. And again, I was excellent in her lessons compared to, I needed to learn how to learn. And I was bad in languages, and this is why I decided to teach a language. Mm-hmm. I thought, no, I'm going to show that it can be different. You can make mistakes, as many as you want. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Nobody's going to ask you to come to the board and write things and humiliate you. It's going to be so intimate, you and your studies. And even if there is something that people share, talk in class when you teach a language, it will never be that they feel that they've made mistake after mistake. And even if they do, you say, it's okay. Yeah.
You learn from making mistakes.
Yes, there. And I do know that I was that teacher. Definitely when I taught adults. With kids, it was a bit more challenging because sometimes you need to be more rigid, more
really firm.
Yeah. But just the feeling of let's enjoy what we're learning. And because I didn't have teachers like that, not always. And again, I had one English teacher that she did it more, but all the previous ones, all the years that I thought I was learning English, I was humiliated all the time. I was so bad in it. I'm always laughing that I never in my wildest dreams, I thought that I will not only speak English daily, but create my own curriculum, write, papers and things like that in English, and teach in English, and open my company and everything will be in English. And my English is not great. I make mistakes, but listen, this is how I express myself in the English. You don't want to know what grade I got in the in the baccalaureate.
Not
really,
important.
And that's why. That's why, because I was not a good student. I could do much more. And that's
you've done so much. So, yeah, I would say be proud of yourself.
Tiffany, I cannot thank you enough. You're such a great person to sit and chat with. Like you said, you're glowing. It's always so flowing with you. And I really hope that we help people to understand how we create confidentiality, how important it is in the life of a coach and coachee together, coach and client. And I do know something that I wanted to mention. When, like a tip,
okay,
to finish the podcast,
all right,
the episode. If you ever feel uncomfortable with something that anybody says to you, but definitely in coaching, like that a coach is saying things that you are not comfortable to hear, run away. And I will give you, I'll explain what I'm thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say your coach is constantly telling you of other clients. Yeah?
Right.
So, I had a client that did that, and a client that did that, and a client that did that. And you think, one day I will be that client that you might talk to me about me. And you're not happy with it. If you're happy with it, that's fine. But if you're not happy with it, run away. Really. I cannot emphasize enough. And it from the teaching, I give you a lot of examples. So they are so
kind of global.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And again, there will be, I tend to ask my clients, will it be helpful if I will share with you something that happened to another client? Rarely I ask that, because I usually don't share like that. But if I will ask. Because it's, again, it's like, it's a completely different example, but it's actually an example that a friend shared with me this week, that she got divorced and then she met another person who also was divorced, and he kept talking so badly about his ex-partner. And she said to me, I just didn't feel comfortable with that. Because what will he say to me about me if he ever break up with me? That was the thing. That was the thing that was really bothering her. And she said it to him a few times, and he didn't see what's wrong. Oh, you're supposed to. And that bothered her.
I think it's the same with a job interview, or if you go to a company and they only talk very badly about the previous employer or the previous employee that had left. That's also a good sign, It's not a good sign, but it's something to be aware of, that you think, will they talk about me like this as well?
Yeah.
If I decide to go.
So first of all, what happens in coaching, if you dare, then say. And if you don't want to open it up, just stop. Really, and find another coach. There's clearly not a match there in terms of trust and confidentiality. We anyway, as coaches, we're not supposed to do that too much. It's rare that we share something. And as you know, we will not open it up now, but there are ways. We have a whole unit about sharing information, right? When the coach is sharing information about clients. There are different ways to do it at different levels. But yeah, if you as a client, you're not comfortable with what the coach is sharing about their life or somebody else's, if you can, say, and don't be afraid to go. If it's not a comfortable environment, go.
Right. There's got to be, it's got to feel safe. You've got to feel that that you can share, that there's the bond. And if you don't even feel that you could mention that, then indeed for me that would be a red flag. And I would say, you know what, this is not going to work.
Exactly. On this very negative note we are finishing. Let's make it a positive note.
A positive note. I think a good coach is somebody that understands how important confidentiality is, that understands the relationship, that trust. And a good coach also understands there's got to be a match.
Yeah, definitely.
That is the first thing. There's got to be a match. And I think every coach understands that is first and foremost, there's got to be a good match.
Yeah.
And I think they have all the respect for that. So
again, confidentiality is part of the match.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank
Pleasure.
you for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening to us. Please like us. Please share this episode with anyone you think can use it and benefit from it. Write to us if you think that you liked it. Compliments to Tiffany definitely will be really appreciated. And share what we are doing here. We're doing it for you, but it's important for us that others will hear about it as well. Thank you so much for listening, and until the next episode, goodbye.
Bye.